this video might be hard for me to do. As a kid, Return of the Jedi was the first movie I saw in theaters for Star Wars, and I loved it. But today, I'm taking a very hard and critical look at it. I think the original trilogy is the best era of Star Wars. But does nostalgia blind me? Does it also blind other older Star Wars fans for thinking that the original trilogy is part of the best era? Because there is so much newer and possibly better quality content out there right now for Star Wars. In this series, we're gonna explore that. Is Return of the Jedi and the original trilogy part of the best Star Wars era? To be completely honest, I saw Return of the Jedi when I was 5 years old, and I vaguely remember it. But what I remember clearly is playing with the action figures and listening to this tape from 1979, the original Star Wars audiobook. This was my gateway into a galaxy far, far away.
This is the story of Star Wars. You can read along with me in your book. You will know it is time to turn the page when you hear R2-D2 beep. Like this.
And in this series, I take a look at A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, and I hope you go back and watch those episodes, as I have to separate nostalgia and how I emotionally feel about these films and take a critical look at them to really understand them and how they compare to newer era Star Wars content. I have the original movies on VHS, so I watched those, and I watched the prequel and sequel trilogy for this series. So I hope you can join me on this journey as I go through each and every one of the Star Wars eras, from 1977 all the way to today, and how each era is different for every generation. So please give this video a like and subscribe to follow along. Return of the Jedi, released in 1983. Now, it's a feat to have one movie capture an audience's attention. It's like winning the Powerball lottery twice, but to do it again and make it 3 times? That's downright almost impossible. Here is where we will look at Return of the Jedi without a nostalgia lens and make some hard realizations. The Return of the Jedi has to thank Empire Strikes Back's success and the ability to develop the characters so strongly. Because in Jedi, it really allows us to enjoy more action without so much development. We are able to be introduced to new characters right off the bat, such as Jabba, without having to explain who he is. He is Han's new master, the one Lucas had been actually setting up since A New Hope. But Jabba's scene only satisfies one thing: getting Han back. You can also say it's exposition to establish Luke as a more developed Jedi. It really does nothing to further the main story of Luke and Vader or Leia versus the Empire. It's a huge sidetrack, and it takes up a lot of time. And this is where critics and smart fans did tear this film apart. It focuses its time on unnecessary items in the story that can cause distractions in the main plot. Some critics at the time even said that this was pandering to the already huge marketing machine that George Lucas had built. You introduce new characters, you sell more merchandise. This was the main criticisms with the time spent at Jabba's, and the most criticism came from the adorable Ewoks, which Lucas was heavily criticized for putting in there to appeal to children to sell more toys. We won't argue that point here. There are plenty of videos and forums for that. What we are here to dissect is, do these characters help or hurt the main story's objective? And that objective is to defeat the Empire and get resolution with Luke's father. When you answer these questions, we can quickly say, no, they don't. Jabba has no ties with the Empire, and Jabba did not further that story. And the Ewoks, even though they helped, they weren't key to destroying the Emperor. And they merely added elements to fill a feature film plot. Although, as a kid, I have to be honest, I love both the Ewoks and Jabba. Alright, no more nostalgia glasses. There have only been a couple times where a final film in the franchise's story has blown me away. The ultimate granddaddy is The Lord of the Rings. The other was The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And the rest are floating around the ether, all tied for third spot or lost in my memory banks. The main complaints in this last installment of the trilogy is the laziness of bringing back the Death Star. Lucas said the reason he brought it back was because of the advances in technology, and it would allow him to do a better job with the space battle. In that statement lies the problem. Battles don't make the story. Updating matte techniques and motion control doesn't make a better situation. It's how your characters enter the battle and what has prepared them both in the choices that they've made and where they are emotionally that makes the battle. Long, gratuitous battle scenes are also to blame. Between the scenes at Jabba's palace, the battle on the forest moon, the space battle over the Death Star, the only real battle that drives an emotional story and drives the character is the battle with Luke and Vader. And that was less of a battle and more of an emotional chess game. And we can really care less if the whole fleet gets destroyed. We have no emotional investment in that. But really, the only things I care about is that the Millennium Falcon comes home safe, and Lando. And let's be honest, we feel safe with the Ewoks. The stakes are really set in the favor to the cute bears winning. But the real stakes all rely on Luke, which is how it should be. But the way that we arrive there, it's a little superficial with the new Death Star as the whole driver. The story could have worked without a new Death Star. The story revolves around Luke and Vader at this point, with Leia's fight with the Empire actually being secondary. But it could have taken place with another device, with still big stakes. At this point in the era, the main emotion comes from the Skywalker saga and how Luke and Vader conclude their relationship. The Return of the Jedi was ultimately a safe film that took no risks. And that's not bad, nor is it good. It just is. It's what we call these days fan service. But nonetheless, it was still a good tie-up of a story. The son returned to redeem the fallen father to fulfill his destiny. The monarch was able to bring a dictatorship down with a small rebellion. And the lone warrior was able to find a cause and fall in love. It's true that it could have been better, but it's hard to find that lightning in a bottle a third time. And I've tried really hard to look objectively at these films. And I've made arguments as to why these films are the best in all the Star Wars eras. But let's just be honest real quick. Nostalgia does play a big part of anyone's film-going experience, and it should. Cinema allows us to escape. We form emotional bonds with the characters on screen, as they've given us happy times, filled us with wonder, have been there when we're sad, have helped us build our own imaginations. And seeing this as a kid, it did have a deep emotional impression on me, which shows this. We have 4 different eras, told in 4 different spans of generational times. The early 80s, the early 2000s, the 2010s, and now the early 2020s. So if you were born in any one of these eras, you probably have an emotional connection with the Star Wars era that's closest to you. And as Star Wars fans, we should all be passionate about what we like, what we don't like, and what we hold nostalgic to drive it all. We would be a bland species if we held what we liked and didn't based on pure logic. But we always remember things by the way that they made us feel. And the Star Wars original era trilogy has made an emotional impression on me in a way that no other film franchise will. But we have a bigger question to explore. If the original trilogy is the best, then why are the others not? And am I wrong about that? We will explore that question on the next videos in this series. But for now, let us know in the comments what era you think is the best and why. Do you agree or disagree with my dissertation of why I think they are the best? Let us all know. One thing is true. We are all Star Wars fans, and we all love Star Wars. Now that we've covered the original trilogy, now it's time to explore the prequel trilogy, the next era in Star Wars, and do a breakdown of what makes it great or where it falls short of the original. To watch that or a compilation edit of all 3 original era trilogy breakdown episodes, click the thumbnails on your screen now. And as always, my friends, thank you, and I will see you next time.